Hey, welcome back to Tier Mania, the channel where we rank and talk about the things we love. Today we're going to be ranking every episode of Black Mirror. This is just going to be a solo episode today. Jason has not seen Black Mirror, so it's just going to be me doing this. But I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite TV shows, if not my favorite TV show of all time. I think it's phenomenal. I think almost every episode is really, really good. So if I rank something low, I'm sorry. It just didn't do it for me personally. It doesn't mean it's bad. So going forward, keep in mind this is just my opinion, and I would love to hear yours. If you disagree with me, definitely let me know in the comments why you think something should be higher, should be lower. Don't just say like, oh, this is bad. Just, explain it, and I definitely gonna hear you out. So I would love to hear it. And without further ado, spoiler warning, big spoiler warning. I am going to be talking about every episode in depth, so if you haven't seen any of them, just feel free to skip. I'll have the time stamps in the comment section. So if you want to see a specific episode, or you don't want to care, if you don't care about a specific episode, you can skip through them. And yeah, with all that out of the way, let's just get right into it. Starting with episode 1, the National Anthem. So I think this is a really good starting point. This is the first ever episode of Black Mirror. And I think it's pretty solid. I think it goes in C tier. I don't think it's the best episode of Black Mirror by any means, but I think it's really good. It gets you focused in the beginning. You feel for him, you understand where he's coming from. It's a big moral dilemma. I think some of what Black Mirror does best is it puts you as a viewer into thinking, what would I do? Like, what would I do in that scenario? And I think this is one of the best episodes for that. However, I just think there's better episodes out there. Like, we're going to go up from here. But I think this is a really good starting point for Black Mirror. So, National Anthem, C tier. 15 Million Merits, episode 2. I think this is A tier. Now, don't kill me because I'm not putting in an S tier, because I do think this is one of the best episodes of Black Mirror. However, I just think it's a little overrated because it's really good. Don't get me wrong. I think the story is interesting. The dystopian future thing going on is really cool. I like the idea. I like the premise. Daniel Kaluuya goes ham in this episode, and I love the ending. It's a really cool ending. I mean, depressing because Black Mirror, but it's really good. And I think this episode is fantastic. I just think it's a little overrated. But nonetheless, great episode. Episode 3, Entire History of You. This is one of my favorite episodes, and I think it's one of the best. Like, I'm not just being biased, just like, oh, I like this one, so S tier. But I think this is such a good episode. Oh my goodness. First of all, the technology in it, I don't think you need to have... I mean, I see people, like, when they're ranking these, saying like, oh, this episode didn't have any cool technology, so it's low tier. I don't think that's the case. I don't think you need to have like super futuristic technology to make it a good episode. But the technology in this episode is really interesting, and they constantly build off of this technology they introduce. I forget what it's called, the thing where you can see your memories and you can project them. So interesting. I could totally see that being a thing in the future if it's possible. Crazy interesting technology, and I love the different ways they show it off and like how people would use that. And obviously, seeing him start off as a lawyer kind of sets the stage for him being someone smart and being able to problem solve. So once he suspects something's up, I think it's pretty relatable. I mean, I think he obviously goes to way too extremes to get the truth, but I think that's a pretty understandable situation of if you had the technology and the means to start digging deep and like overthinking things, you definitely would, or like a lot of people would. So I find him to be very relatable, very sympathetic character. And I think the music in this episode is fantastic. The colors, the cinematography, the acting, I think everything is amazing. I think this is one of the best episodes of Black Mirror by far. And when I tell people I love the show or why the show is good, this is one of the first episodes I recommend. So Entire History of You, fantastic episode. Number 4, Be Right Back. So don't hate me, please. But I think this is B tier. I know a lot of people love this episode. Again, I just think it's a little overrated. The concept is really interesting, especially if you're someone that has lost someone significant in their life. I totally get that, and how this could be an extremely relatable episode. And I do like the technology a lot, and the idea of having a robot that is just based off of, how you present yourself on like social media and in making that into a version of you. I think that's a really cool episode. And I like where this episode explores. I just think it's a little overrated. I think the ending is really cool. The acting is great. Domhnall Gleeson and the other actor, they do a great job here. I just think there's better Black Mirror out there. and this one's a little overrated. It's very sad, but I mean, what Black Mirror episode isn't sad? So, you know, shout out to Be Right Back. It's a great episode. Just a little bit overrated. Next up, White Bear. White Bear. This is another A tier. I think it's a little bit better than 15 Million Merits, honestly. This is one of the most unique episodes. I love this episode. As soon as it starts off, you're just thrown into the situation. You're trying to figure out what's going on. Everything is very confusing. You're put in the same mindset as the character. The actor does a phenomenal job. She kills it in this episode. And then obviously, you know, you get the big reveal of it being this correctional facility, and you see her past and how she got there and what she did. And it's just really conflicting. Like, at least I feel it is. Because you see what she did, and obviously she deserves a pretty big punishment for that, but is this morally right? That's up to you to decide. And I really, really like that about this episode. I really like when Black Mirror puts you in these scenarios of conflicting morality. It's really cool, and it's why I love the show, and I think this is a phenomenal episode, and it's just a complete roller coaster. And like, just her screaming at the end of that episode is just gut-wrenching. Like, like her screaming, and then the park runner or facilitator, you just got this cold expression, does not care at all. Like, this episode is great. This episode is great, and I highly, highly recommend it. One of the best, for sure. In contrast to that, the Waldo Moment is next, and I think I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I don't know if this is a hot take. It probably isn't, but I think this is the worst episode of Black Mirror ever. This episode is really bad. I'm going to be honest. I get what they were going for. I like the idea of what they were going for, but I just think it fails on most fronts. I'm sorry if this is your favorite episode, but I don't find it very funny. I think the political commentary, again, is a good idea, and I get what they're going for, but I don't think it lands at all. I think the character isn't super sympathetic, and I just didn't really care for him or for any of the characters involved. And it just kind of fell flat, you know, and not every episode can be a hit, not everything can be a banger. So there's got to be something at the bottom, and this is it. So again, I feel bad if this is your favorite, but this one did not do it for me. Again, in sharp contrast to that, White Christmas is next, and whoo, this is S tier. This is an easy S tier episode. I think Entire's review is a little bit better personally, but don't get me wrong, this is easily one of the best episodes of Black Mirror. This is so good. I love the multiple story format when they do this in future episodes. I think it's great that they introduced this, having multiple stories connect. I love the cookie technology. I think that's so interesting. I love how they connect that at the end with, you know, it turns out they were in a cookie the whole time. They're, you know, it's all these layers, and then it connects again at the end to where, you know, John Hamm, he gets the confession out of him, and then they use the, you know, blocking technology on him. Like, everything in this episode connects together. Super, super interesting. I think the moral dilemmas are really interesting with, you know, like the main guy, him and his girlfriend, their conflicts and how things ended up for them. I think both sides are really interesting, and they're both relatable, and they're both sympathetic. Like, you can watch this episode and say, oh man, that really sucks to be him. I can't believe that happened. But you could also watch it and be like, well, he handled that totally wrong, and he kind of deserves it. Like, you know, you can fall on a lot of different sides here, or you can fall on none of them and be like, oh, they both did that wrong, blah, blah, blah. But I just think this episode is one of, like, it's almost perfect. It's almost perfect TV. It's fantastic. Everything about this episode is so good. All the actors kill it. John Hamm, the other guy, the other woman, they all do phenomenal jobs. And I just think this is such a good episode. It's so good. So good. So if you haven't seen this one, please watch it. It's amazing. Next up, man, Black Mirror was they were just on a tear. Is Nosedive. And I think Nosedive is also S tier. This is an incredible episode as well. I wrote a whole college paper on this episode, so obviously I'm a little biased, but I think it's really interesting. I think the whole concept of society as a whole being based on ratings is really interesting, especially now in 2021 as of recording this. You know, a lot of different systems are based on ratings now, and if you have a low rating, it really really disrupts your ability to do things. And I think obviously this episode takes that idea to the extreme, but it's a very real reality. Like, Black Mirror, again, as I've mentioned, is a great show because it presents scenarios that could be true or could be end up in our future. And I think this might be the #1 episode that actually could be a thing, like later on in life. I could be exaggerating. That's just how I feel. But this episode is incredible. Bryce Dallas Howard is amazing in this episode. I love the colors, all the cinematography. I love all the scenarios it puts her in and how it ends. I think it's phenomenal with her screaming, and this whole episode she's trying to be free, and then when she's in jail, ironically, she's free. I think that's so cool. And it's a really, really great episode. Phenomenal all around. Definitely recommend. If I had to recommend one episode to start with, like if you're trying to get your friends into Black Mirror, this is the one. Like, this is the episode to convince people to watch it. Like, it's incredible. It's incredible. Next up though is Playtest. Shout out to John Walker in this episode. It's so funny to go back and watch him now that if you've seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier, what this actor has done. Anyway, I think this is a B tier episode. I think it's not like it's weird. I think it's a very middle of the road episode, but a little better than C tier, if that makes any sense. I think it's really interesting. The whole, like, VR video game concept has been done. A lot of different forms of media has been covered quite a bit, but I think this is a new take on it. Being in a horror game in VR would be terrifying, especially like with this technology. That's so scary. So I love what they did with that. And I think I want to say undertones, but it's more like overtones, I guess, of his relationship with his parents and like growing apart and not really communicating very well. I thought that was really good and executed very well. I kind of wish they dedicated more time to it so that the ending was more impactful. Because I think the ending was impactful on its own. I wish they gave that a little more time, and I think this would be an even better episode. But regardless, with how it came out, I think it was really good. And a slept-on episode, honestly. Pretty good. Next up is The Entire History of You, and this is my favorite episode of Black Mirror, and I think it's the best of all time. This is such a good episode. I'm sorry if you don't like this episode, if you feel like it's overrated, but I am going to tell you why I think it's the best. This episode is phenomenal. Everyone in it is so good. Everyone acting in it feels real. Everything about it it feels like you're just like the episode, or like the villains in the episode. It feels like you're a spy on the wall and you're just watching like real life happen. It's incredible. Obviously there's a Game of Thrones actor in it, so I'm happy about that. But it's really good. I love the subtle hints at what's happening that they plant throughout the episode, in the different restaurant scenes, to kind of like very subtly tell you why we shouldn't be rooting for him. And then at the end of the episode, after he's been through it all, his phone is on low battery, he's like on the verge of death, he's so exhausted, and we get the reveal that 1, he did all of this for nothing, and 2, we've been rooting for a pedophile this whole time. And I love the music choice at the end. I love the cinematography. Just everything in this episode is so good. I can't stress it enough. I think this is the best episode of Black Mirror. I think it's amazing. And it's incredible. I can't recommend it enough. It's so good. It's so good. So shout out to Entire History of You. Next up is San Junipero, and going on with the trend that I've been going on of overrated episodes, I think this episode is pretty overrated. However, I don't think you could put it any lower than A tier. This is a great episode. I love the idea of getting to choose death or getting to choose infinite paradise, and without knowing what the afterlife is actually like. I think that's really, really, really interesting, and a lot of people would do that. Like, in a heartbeat, a lot of people would choose this. And I love the moral dilemmas it puts the characters in, of, do I want to face the overlife or the afterlife? Do I not? Do I want to keep lying to this person? All this stuff. I think it's an incredible episode. I just think it's a little overrated. I don't think it's one of the best ever, but I do really enjoy it, and I think it's phenomenal. And the music, the colors, the acting, I think everything is on point here. I think there's a little bit better episodes. So A tier for sure. San Junipero is great. Next up, though, is Men Against Fire. And You can say a lot of things about this episode. You can say a lot of things. But I think this episode is all about missed opportunities, which is why it's in C tier. So I think this could have been one of the best episodes. It could have. Like, I think the main actor does a great job. I think the other, like, soldiers are great. I think the kind of, like, head operator guy for the military, who's, like, his therapist, quote unquote. I love that actor. He's from House of Cards and some other things. It's phenomenal. So when I saw he was in this, I was like, yes, this is gonna be so good. But I just think they kind of fell flat with it. Like, I love this concept of the military being lied to and being implanted and all this stuff, because I think that really could happen, if not already. But they could have done more with this. They could have done way more with this concept, and I really would love to see them go off the walls with it, or have like a crazy ending or something like that. And I think a lot of us love Black Mirror for how many plot twists there are, how many crazy endings or suspenseful endings there are. And I think this one just fell a little flat, you know. I like a lot of what they did. I just wish they did more with it. So I think C tier is where it goes, but pretty solid episode all around. Next up is Hated in the Nation, and man, I think this is a D tier episode. I did not like it very much. I get what they were going for. I like the extended time. I like the idea, especially now in 2021, the idea of, you know, like cancel culture has grown to a very big topic in the world, and they could have done a lot with this, and I feel like they just didn't do much, and it just turned into like an episode of CSI with killer bees. And I'm sorry if this is your favorite episode. If you want to tell me why you think it's really good, let me know. I'm down to hear about it. But for me, after rewatching it multiple times, I can't do it. It doesn't do it for me. And I think this was a huge missed opportunity for the show. So I'm a little sad. But what can you do? What can you do? Next up is USS Callister, which is a really good episode too. I think this is A tier. I think it goes right here, honestly. It's great. I love all the performances. Shout out to Meth Damon, the guy who's the main character here. I think his whole character is really interesting. Obviously, he's a terrible person. But I think they do a good job of also making him sympathetic and getting you to understand why he does the things he does. And we've already covered the whole VR video game thing, but I think this is a whole nother level of that. I think it's really good. All the actors kill it in this. I think they do a great job of showing you, like, one, you know, why he does the things he does, but two, how horrible of a person he is and how cruel he is. And I love a good villain, and I think he does a phenomenal job at that. I think the finale is really interesting. Given how Black Mirror has influenced me, I was like kind of hoping that it would be a bad ending and like they would get caught and it would just, you know, it would be horrible because Black Mirror. But I do like the ending a lot. I like having a good ending. It's very rare the Black Mirror episodes have good endings. It's literally like USS Callister, San Junipero, and like 2 other episodes. And everything else is super depressing. But this one I think is really good. And I think it's a super fun ride. I think the colors are great. The cinematography is great. It's just a great episode. You know, it's a great episode. So shout out to USS Callister. Phenomenal. Next up is, oh boy, is Arkangel. And man, this one is also super disappointing in my opinion. I think this is D tier. Oh man, I was really excited for this one because when I saw Jodie Foster was going to be the director, super pumped. But this one just fell flat, honestly. I love the idea of this episode too because I like the technology. I think a lot of parents would do this, would definitely sign up for something like this and use it way more than the parent did. But I just think they could have done more with it. Like, I love this concept, and I think there's so many different directions they could have gone, and the direction they did go in just felt really underwhelming. And yeah, plus I know for me this could be a me thing, this could be completely subjective and I'm just tripping, but the actor who played the daughter, she's supposed to be in like high school, but to me she looked way older than that, so that just threw me off. Like the whole episode I was like, isn't she like 25? Like how is she supposed to be in high school? That might just be a me thing and I'm being picky, but for me that just took me out of it. And I think they could have done a lot more with this, so I think this episode's pretty disappointing, but not all bad. It does have some highlights. So that's Arkangel. Speaking of disappointments, it's Crocodile. I think this is another D tier episode. Listen, again, the thing about Black Mirror is even in the bad episodes, I think they're interesting is the problem, because I want to say, oh, this is a bad episode to watch it, but it is a really cool concept. The whole idea of, you know, accidentally doing something horrible, trying to cover it up, and then your guilt coming back to you is definitely something that a lot of people go through, and I think is a very real scenario. It's just, I found this to be obviously, okay, in Black Mirror, there are a lot of things that are unrealistic because we're dealing with very futuristic technologies and societies. But with this episode in particular, I just could not get into it. Like every time she did something, I just felt like that wouldn't have happened, or like that could have gone a different way. And just like, I don't know. I didn't find her character very sympathetic. You know, I think the length she goes to is interesting. Like how far she ends up going and how they catch her, especially calling back to the grain. That's what it was called. The grain, the memories thing. Great callback. But, I just was not into this. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know. There's something about it that I didn't resonate with me. And I love like Psycho characters. Like I love The Shining. I love Psycho. I love American Psycho, all that stuff. I think diving into people going insane is really cool. But this episode, I just think didn't do it very well. And I don't know. You can tell me in the comments if I'm misjudging it, if I'm missing something. I would love to hear it. But for this one, I just think it falls flat. And I don't know. It's not a good episode to me. So next up, something I do really like is Hang the DJ. This is one of my favorite episodes. I love Hang the DJ so much. I can't in good conscience rank it over San Junipero because I think San Junipero is very similar to this episode, and it kind of does the themes a little bit better, and it's more mature, and it's more like I guess emotionally resonant. But I love Hang the DJ. I think it's so fun. I think it's maybe the funniest episode of Black Mirror. I think it's super charming. I think the characters are very compelling. I think it's a very real scenario to anyone that's done any form of like online dating or dating, you know, through quarantine and things like that. But I love this episode. It's so heartwarming. It's great. I think the ending is fantastic. It's just a fun time. It's such a breath of fresh air in Black Mirror because, as I was talking about, most of these episodes are extremely depressing. Literally last episode we just watched someone murder a baby, and now we're just like, yay, dating simulator, woo. So I don't know, I really enjoy this episode. I can't really justify it. If you say this is a C tier or B tier, I can't really like deny that, just because, you know, it's just a fun little episode. But I really enjoy it personally, so I think it's A tier. But to each their own, I suppose. And next up is Metalhead, which, Metalhead seems to be a very divisive episode. Some people love it, some people hate it. I don't think it's that bad either way. I think it's a very C tier episode. But I think I like barely C tier because I get what they're going for. I like the idea of like a noir episode, kind of like a horror movie episode, or like an end of the world apocalypse style episode. But I don't know. I don't think it hit home very well, at least for me. I get what they're going for. You know, shout out to the White Bear reference. And, you know, we watch all of these characters brutally die and risk their lives just to get one teddy bear for one little kid and one of these like refugees of people that are still alive on the earth. And I think that's a powerful message, but I don't think it makes the whole episode good, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I don't know what they could have done to make this better or to improve on it, but I do think it's really interesting. I think it's one of the most unique episodes out there. I like the technology. I like the idea of like these killer robot dogs. I think it's really cool. But just, I've seen it a few times. It's one of the episodes I go back to the least just because it's kind of like you watch it once or twice and you're good. Like you get it, you know? So I think it gets C tier for that. I don't think it's that bad, but I don't think it's that good either. That's Metalhead. And on to Black Museum, who shout out to Shuri, becoming one of the cast of Black Panther after this. We love to see it. But Black Museum is really good. It's weird. Like I think it's really good, but I don't think it's like the best of the best. So I think it's top of B tier because of that. But I like a lot of what they did here. Again, as I mentioned before, I love the idea of having multiple stories and then multiple technologies and tying them all together. Obviously, this is the episode for the Black Mirror fan. All of the references, all the Easter eggs. I think it's great. But it did go a little too long, I think, and it took a little too long to get to the ending and the reveal at the end. But I do think it was really good. Like it's weird. Everything I'm saying, you would think it'd be A tier, S tier. I just think I don't know what it is. It's missing something. It's missing something, making it one of the best episodes ever. But it's really good. It's a really good watch. It's really interesting. I think particularly the middle part of the episode with the technology, with transferring your consciousness into different things, I think that's the best part of the episode. I love that scenario. But everything else is just solid. It's a very, very solid episode. So shout out to Black Museum. Next up is Striking Vipers, which, again, another very divisive episode, but I think it's pretty solid. I think it goes like it's very much like the middle Black Mirror episode. It's not as bad as everyone says it is. It's not as good as everyone says it is. I think it's very solid. I like the idea of the technology, especially for those of us that grew up with video games, video games were a big part of our lives. Who wouldn't want to kiss their homie? You know what I mean? And I think he gets points for that. And, you know, obviously, we talked about VR games already throughout this tier list, so I do like the take that they have on this. But I just don't think it was, like, that good. I think this is probably the most underwhelming ending of all the episodes. Again, I think Black Mirror, it tends to have really intense or satisfying finales. And I think the ending to this one just kind of leaves you like, oh, okay, all right. Like it didn't really wrap things up very well, at least to me. And I think they could have done more with that, but it's still a very pleasant episode, and I think it's really entertaining and interesting. So shout out to Striking Vipers, C tier. Now Smithereens, though. Smithereens, I think, is the most underrated episode of Black Mirror. I think this is a really good episode, and I think it's A tier. I think it just barely makes it to A tier. However, I think it's A tier. It's so good. Like, I think all the performances are really good. I get the criticism that the message they're going for about, you know, like, oh, don't look at your phone while driving, social media kills, is like, it's like a little overboard. I do get that. I think that's why it's not an S tier. But I love this episode. It's so good. I love the performances. I love how everything's handled. I love the ending. It's just the fact that just Topher Grace is in this is great to me. it's a really good episode. I think it's by far the most underrated episode, and is a great watch, and is probably it's the highlight of season 5 for sure. And again, if you haven't seen Smithereens, you haven't seen it in a while, definitely watch it. I recommend it. And that leads us to finally the last episode. I think it's Ashley, Jack, and Rachel 2, I think is what it's called. And this is not the worst episode, but close to it. I think it's very firmly an F tier. This is, yeah, man. I don't even know where to go with this episode. Because the first thing I think of is, man, this just feels like a Disney movie or like a family movie about like getting into wacky hijinks. And it's obviously Miley Cyrus is in it, but I don't know. This episode just didn't need to exist. I like the idea of, you know, like corporations or labels like trying to get more out of an artist after they die or after they don't want to make music anymore and try to squeeze out everything. I do like that premise. I just think they could have handled it way better, and I think this is like, I couldn't care less about like any of the characters in this, and it just was like a really odd way to end season 5, potentially the ending of all of Black Mirror, maybe. So yeah, it just left me feeling bad, man. Like I wanted more from it, and we didn't get it. and it's unfortunate. But that's all the episodes. I didn't rank Bandersnatch, but if I were to rank Bandersnatch, I'd say it's like low B tier. I like the idea of Choose Your Own Adventure. I thought it was really fun, but because the Choose Adventure aspect, I think it loses a lot of the emotional resonancy or like a lot of the impact because everyone has different, everyone has different experiences with it, and I think what makes Black Mirror special is talking about it with other people, which is why I wanted to make this video, but talking about it with other people and seeing how they feel about it or what they thought about how it ended and things like that. And since you don't necessarily have that all the time with Bandersnatch, I think it loses some points, but it was a good experience, and I'm happy they did it. So that's it. That's the tier list. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I would really appreciate it. And let me know what other tier lists you'd like to see. I'd love to hear from you, and if you want us to rank specific things, definitely let us know. If you want to hear more from me, check me out on Twitch at Storm Targaryen. I stream there like 4 to 5 times a week, so I try to stay pretty consistent. And yeah, again, that'll be it. Definitely let me know what you thought, and if you disagree or agree with the rankings, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.